One day you're going to say to me when we're 80, it's like,
Oh, I'll never make 80. There's no fucking way.
yeah, you will.
I tell you what, though, I will come back and move your fucking furniture around.
Good man.
I'll be like, boo! And I'll knock over a chaise lounge. And you're like, that's not easy.
I'll be like, really, Josh? Is that it?
You don't know how hard it is to
It's
boo
so hard.
somebody.
It's really hard. It takes so much energy.
Jump scares are a nightmare.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm always great when I'm in the room with you.
Oh, come on.
You know, it's just a beautiful kind of Lucy conversation-wise. Everything beautifully deliberate around this wonderful piece of art you're releasing. But, I mean, you probably don't need necessarily to tread the boards on this one is my point.
Yeah.
It's not a conventional album thing. It speaks for itself beautifully. You're really delivering it to fans in a very heartfelt and very linear way. It's like, hey, come and experience this. You know, people will. So I'm grateful for this.
Well, it's a little different in that the point is just to see it, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm proud of it. So,
Yeah.
and also someone told me to talk about it. So, but but that's not why I'm here with you, because actually
Finally,
you
the
and I
truth.
are buddies. We could have just went to dinner.
Yeah, I could just put a phone down with voice memo
No,
recording.
no.
Again.
We could have just stopped recording our dinners.
That's where I get my material from, man.
Weirdest spank bank ever. Yeah.
Baby, why are you wearing AirPods again when you're in bed?
Don't worry about it. Just come closer.
All right, we're good. Okay. The title itself has humor in it, but it you know in a beautiful kind of Queens way, and you know, and it's sort of like, yeah, we're alive, we're happening, but guess where we're alive? You know, it's like
We're the only ones in here that are
yeah,
I like things that are just a little cheeky.
yeah, it's got that, but the experience itself is. It's really moving, man, and we're going to dive into all of it as much as you want to talk about it, because there's such a story to this whole experience dating back, the idea of going into the catacombs, and this dates back decades before you actually got a chance to go in with the band and with musicians to do it.
You know, I always enjoy hanging with you, but this part of it isn't always my favorite part, the talking about stuff, but in this case,
I tried to give you an out at the very top, and you didn't take it, so now you're
just
in.
a goodbye. Just all right, cool.
That's
we'll
what
see ya.
you didn't get the point. I was like saying you can
Giving
leave.
me a chance to bail. I don't mean it's not a diss. It's just that it's more confusing sometimes to talk about something, or it's just harder. But in the discussion of this, I keep having little mini realizations about it, because you know. My fascination with the Catacombs started as a boy, and seeing pictures and trying to get your head around that. Obviously, in the simplest terms, there's a bunch of bodies and they're stacked in a certain manner. You know,
It's 200 miles
yeah,
of, you know, of human skeletal remains that ultimately create a foundation
yeah.
very far below ground level.
But you start having these immediate realizations, like, you know, these things are built out of sheer love and respect and reverence, and you know, no one would move 6 million, you know, remains and stack them with such care, unless they just had an absolute love and respect for life, and that permeates that structure. So it's so dominating, you know, and even the notion that this really started when I was around 8 in a history class, and I developed this fascination, and so I have these they're not weird, they're just a little humbling realizations that, like, I've been working on this actually since I was little, or it's like a dream that kept evolving, and the result is this performance. It's kind of nice, actually.
Where were you when you actually got to go in for the first time?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. There's also a sort of entitled, spoiled aspect to this, is that somewhere around 19, 20, 18 years ago, I on a day off in Paris, I tried to go in the catacombs, and the line was 3.5 hours long.
Did you get a Disney pass?
Well, that's why I was like, how do I skip the line? And which is it's kind of a shitty, like, question to like, how do I skirt my responsibility with that everyone else is sharing?
Yeah.
I think that it doesn't matter the idea's origin. It's sort of how you deliver it at the end of the day. And so it became this sort of, initially it was like, there's no way someone will allow us to play in the Catacombs. And that's the response I got.
Did you ask straight after you cut the line and went down?
No, I didn't go in.
Oh, you didn't go in?
No.
You actually were a good guy about it.
The first time that I went in to the Catacombs was the Sunday night before we filmed.
Wow.
So because I sort of said, no,
We're not
they're
doing
attached.
like that. Yeah.
I'm going to go like so. And if I'm honest, I don't, for many years, I never believed it was a possibility because it's a shame the French don't have a word for bureaucracy. But it seemed like we were going to get the runaround forever. It was like, no, you must ask him and then you must ask her. And
what do you think the resistance was ultimately, based on your experience of kind of going around the houses?
Well, it was, that was like, this is too hard and it's annoying and no one's ever done this. And why would I spend time helping you do this thing?
And there's 3
which
hours.
is a legit
For
response.
sure. And have you seen the queue outside? We're good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, attention was what it didn't require.
Yes.
But it wasn't really about attention. It was like, trying to do something that just seemed like, oh, this could be beautiful. This could be elegant. You don't really know.
Especially because you hadn't been in. And that does like low-key blow my mind, because if you've been in and you've kind of had the experience and enjoyed the experience and kind of and absorbed it once and gone, I can actually feel what this will be like. That's one thing. But to have not actually done that and still pushed forward on this dream of being able to do it is kind of...
Well, I didn't want to spoil that first date feeling
with 6 million dead.
Yeah, it became more about, I'd like to actually make this sort of dream happen. And I'd like my reaction to be right before this happens. That just felt like a part of this. That sort of desire for it to have this improv element to it. What's the improv thing is that you, no matter what's thrown at you, you say yes and, and when we did our walkthrough, we didn't make a lot of definitive plans because it felt as if whatever we will plan to do will not. It won't, whatever works above doesn't work below in this instance. Yeah. And that was very true. So in that walkthrough, it was like an improv. The director Thomas and on Dean, the producer, we're walking through saying, okay, we could do this, we could shoot over here. What if we? And I think that allowed us to move at the speed of inspiration. And so you're only doing what's exciting to you. And I'm glad that that's the path we took, because you're only making a choice based on going, okay, yeah.
It's very on brand for you as well. I mean, it just is in terms of your whole story. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of the beginning of the stories you told us of going out to the desert with your friends and figuring it out. And, you've learned so much and done so much since then. And you've also got the capabilities of as a band to move into the framework very easily. It's like, hey, this summer being an example, we're going to go spend a couple of months in Europe and smash the fucking shit out of some big parks. But did this feel to some degree like a little bit of a return to that sort of, that energy of like, okay, like we're just going to have to let go?
I think life is so habit forming. You will form a habit of some kind. And my relationship with music has always been, even if there's a problem, let's solve it in a way that seems, enjoyable, and so there's nowhere to play, so we'll go play outside with generators. That sort of, I've got an idea, and allowing those, because you don't know what you're doing, you don't know if you're not allowed to do that, isn't really part of the discussion. You just creative problem solving. So in reflecting, it's a lot like playing outdoors. I agree with that, and you can't plug anything in at the Catacombs.
No amplification at all.
Yeah, we had a Wurlitzer that we just hooked to a car battery. So it was like, okay, don't, and the water's dripping, and you're like, is Dean gonna go, hey,
Because there ain't no outlets down there, man.
No, there's no. So everything was battery powered, and so you start saying, okay, if I'm wearing a mic like you're on the telly, that means I could just go wherever I like to go in this place, and so it opened up a little bit of a bizarre ability to sort of take a tour of the catacombs while you're playing.
Feels like it when you watch it. It really does. I'm so glad you said that, because when I watched it, I was struck by how non-performative it felt.
The goal for me is always just like one moment in life where it feels real, and that is my normal, where I'm like, I know this is real. I believe what's happening.
Yeah.
And so it allowed for that to actually just move in the moment, react in the moment, and that space is so dominating
because it's low as well, right? It all feels very claustrophobic, and I don't mean that. That's a very negative term for most people, but it does, or is intimate a better term?
In other places, playing live, it's almost like feels like I have a fire hose squirting to people or something. I really sexualized that on accident. But this felt like we were in the belly of something else. We were surrounded by it. It's very organic. The ceiling is dripping with condensation. The air has this thickness to it. And I mean, I know it's obvious we're inside this thing, but it felt like we were deep inside the this organic thing, The ground is oftentimes wet and has gravel, so you every step happens, you
tactile.
Understand it. Yeah. It's very ASMR in there.
Yeah.
And when you're playing something that's stripped down to the bones, and I guess in front of people that are stripped to the bones too, which was another it just felt intuitively like this should be when there's almost nothing being performed, everything is more important somehow, and so when you're doing that, the ceiling dripping and the camera people were walking and it's crunching on the ground, it becomes part of the performance. And there was one moment where it was like, should we, use an audio program to remove the crunching of the, and I thought, I don't know, I don't even understand what that question is. That's what happened. And it's okay. No one's going to listen and say, I love it, but this fucking crunching is driving me bananas.
We always used to joke whenever we would do outside broadcasts on radio and places, and then we would get there and they'd put us in a conference room at a hotel. And I'm like, so we just traveled 3 hours to be in a room.
Right.
We could have been anywhere in the world.
Right. Have everyone sterilized. I think that there's such a difference between a quest for perfection and a quest for something great. They're so far apart from each other. As it translates for what we've done is that, for a number of reasons, some of them were physical for me. And then, much of it was just not trying to overdo it. It's not supposed to be perfect. You're hearing take 3 of 4, take 2 of 3, take 1 of 2, take 2 of 2. There wasn't a need that quest wasn't for perfection. There are mistakes. There's one moment I just got this like surging pain. So I'm singing, I just go, ah. But I also thought, wow, it's an amazing moment, because this is how it was. And so it almost feels like it's not my business to change it. Like that has nothing to do with it. And again, I don't believe someone will hear this. It's in the first song. It's like, I'm like, look at you.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I don't think that someone's going to hear that and be like, all right, well, I'm out. It's just not going to do, And like there's tuning issues sometimes, and as I'm walking around, I have to hear where someone else is. We almost get off from each other, but we don't.
No, it's a testament to how beautiful, the beautiful place you've found yourselves as friends and as a band and with the additional players as well. Just, it was clear. It's clear when you watch it and when you listen to it that everybody was feeling that sense of faithfulness, wanting to be faithful to the environment that you were in.
Yeah, well, it is a very humbling place. I mean, you go down in there and there's all these existential questions that just sort of hit you straight away. And respect is the number one feeling, where it's like feeling humbled and sort of respected. But I like that feeling small. That's what I love about the desert, is you're sort of dwarfed by the landscape. And in that moment of feeling a bit unimportant, you're like, I'm here to do my part.
Serve, yeah.
Yeah. And so it very much felt like, you're getting on your knees and putting your head down, and you say, I swear to do what I'm supposed to do here today.
When did you film this? What was the date-ish?
It was in July, I think there was a 2 in it. Yeah.
So that maps. So you were off the road almost immediately after you did this performance.
I knew something was wrong,
For those people that don't know, you took some time because you had a health situation that needed to be dealt with. So this is where we lay it on the table, and you take us into the story as far as you want to take us.
But I've been working on this for so long, and it's a bit like trying to catch smoke in your hand. It's so elusive at times. It had been close and gone away, and I just knew if we didn't do it, there was a strong chance it was going to go away forever, because it's such a timing thing,
How did other people feel? What was the recommendation on high from those that love you the most?
Just to go home, to stop. I understand that too, because if you care about someone, you don't want to see them. It seems senseless to push on, But also, and I understand that, but this also brings up, these issues that don't come up all the time. Like, you don't often get a chance to show who you really are. Most of the time you're playing a gig and you're trying to do your best to make it a special night, but the request isn't like, who are you? Can you do this or not? So like a bit like what I would call a shut up and fuck me situation, where it's like, stop talking. Are you going to do it or not? Can you pull this off? And like, we're all here and it's time to do this. What are you going to do? And I'm very thankful for those moments. And the physical side, or the ouchie side, is like, I can do that I understand that. And I get it, and I get the discomfort.
Yeah, there's
of
a
that.
TikTok montage out there somewhere of you with a broken leg over here and some fucking injury over there. It's like, shut up! And
Well, yeah, because everyone cancels, and I can't stand it, and also, like how it's only a couple extra hours, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and also, I also realize the inherent stupidity of some of the stuff I've done, like that is in that wing of things. And I kind of have made a vow that I don't want to walk on stage injured anymore, So, because it can get dire, which is what the consequences were pretty elevated at the end. But I just wanted it so bad, And I also, like, I listened. I was asked to reconsider, but the answer is no. And like, you have to just, now let's do it, But I do think that that it made it better.
I'm going to get to that part. I'm really interested in that aspect of.
Well, we would have just played, and we made a little behind the scenes documentary, and that documentary would have went something like, "Man, it's so cool to be here," and things like that. And instead, I was looking around at the location we were, and all these people that are now just what's left, and their source energy is somewhere else. It's gone home. You know what I mean? And like, I was having issues that involve that same feeling, and it made it like, I felt like I'm where I belong. I'm supposed to be here.
Did you feel supported?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a moment where everyone broke for lunch. There's like 132 you just go right on the spiral staircase coming down.
No lift.
No. And
fuck, 132.
And so I'd done it about 9 or 10 times, just, it's like, if you want to use the restroom, if you want to, like, get get like a snack or something like that. You have to go up the thing. Anyways, everyone broke for lunch, and I just honestly I could not like eat, and I couldn't go up again. I was getting a little exhausted, and
is that you?
That is me. So I was like, I'm gonna lay here and just rest, But you're a couple, you're the better part of 100 meters down, and a few, maybe 300, 400 meters horizontal deep into this thing, and the Catacombs is 100% empty except for me and 6 million plus, deceased people. And I thought, first I thought if the lights go out, there's going to be one crazy Braille army man.
Seriously.
And then I was like, if ever there was a time to be haunted, this is it. And so I was like, what do you got? And instead of feeling sort of, I guess I felt sort of embraced and supported,
Yeah.
And I felt really calm. It was the most calm I felt all day. And it felt like a little bit like, don't just play here, like stay here,
Yeah.
And so I fell asleep like a baby. And my cot was in this, in the sort of the entrance of this very dark hallway that had one light, like about 100 feet down. And
I'm just pleased with that. I'm just thinking about the crew, and the crew are just like, where are we going to put Josh's rest? Where are we going to put his fucking medevac bed? It's like, over here, I got the perfect spot.
it's like a dark hallway. Those type of things don't bother me, I'm just like, if you're just going to move the furniture, I'm okay with a little redecorating if you're a ghost. You know what I mean? It's just they moved the chair, and I was like, fantastic. I was going to put it over there myself. And
so you get to your car.
I fall asleep, and I hear that familiar crunching and a little bit of French, and it's these two young interns. They're walking and talking, and I just sit up and go, what time is it? And they go, ah! And I was like, oh, pardon,
Scooby-Doo and shit.
Yeah, they're never gonna forget that, But the willingness to sort of push on, like I get to have those stories and those moments like that. I mean, after all this is just an attempt to steal moments out of the sky and make them yours, and just hold it for a second, then let it go. You know what I mean?
Only you know what your limitations are. We've seen this before. You obviously have a very high threshold and a very strong discipline and a desire to deliver on your promises. And that's something I think I've known about you from the beginning, because you've said yes to every interview I've asked you to do, and you've said yes and never not shown up. And I'm like, man, there's definitely times you didn't want to fucking come.
Well,
so you're a man of your honor in that regard. But that being said, and this is the last time I'll be granular about it, but I think it's important context, because then we're going to get to the influence on the performance. How bad was the pain?
I did not like it, and I think everyone agrees that it's annoying to complain and things like that. There were, I also was taking all this medication, which is just like can steal your voice a little bit and make you obviously pretty woozy, and the medication just wasn't working, So it was difficult for me. But I tried to, I like to joke in those moments, because, when life is good, it's funny, and when life is hard, it's really funny. I mean, I would have preferred it if it was a lot less. It was a lot.
It's always funny until someone gets hurt, and then it's just hilarious.
Right. But I also, again, I think it makes it better, because it really made me question what's important. And we agreed that when Tomas would say action, that we would just sit for 30 seconds and wait. And we do the same after. And you hear the dripping, and you're looking at each other. You're looking around, and you're just breathing. And it's like, I'm going to do it. I'm gonna, I love that feeling when it's too late. Like you can't rehearse, you can't practice, it's just time to just be what you are, and you have to let go.
Is it the most present you can feel probably in your life?
This is the moment where I feel like everything's okay, because you have no chance, I just want insurmountable odds. That's all I want, is someone to tell me it's too late, and so I can be like, all right then, what have I got to lose?
So with that being said, I can imagine that in an experience where we are so preoccupied with our mortality and ultimately we'll all face death at some point, and most people on earth have a sense of trepidation and fear about what that is, that perhaps you have a different outtake, because that will be the ultimate threshold where it's like, all right,
Well, now that it's been, and I don't want to
that's not, those two things aren't related, by the way. This
I know
is separate.
and also like, I don't want to keep it's only 4 times now that I've gotten pretty close, and I don't want it to be a focus of my life. And
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. They're not related.
This situation.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I can do about that. I knew when we went in the Catacombs, the tour was over. And we all, the band knew that no one else knew. And I was sort of like, it was such a great tour. I had my whole family. We all had our families. It was going to be fucking great.
Yeah.
It was such a, it's going to be such a joy. And so I was just like, God damn it, man. But that frustration of like, no, that's, that helps fuel you. You know what I mean? To be like, no, it's not over. No, it's not. And I like that feeling. The truth is that each time I've had something where I was like, oops, almost died, I've never felt more alive than I did the day I almost died. I'm not looking for that. I'm just saying that the focus of like, I appreciate what I have. If given the chance to fix this and move forward, I will. I know what matters to me: family, music, nothing. Right? I understand. Like, I don't need any extra. I don't want any extra. And it's like, and I've had these situations come up a lot in the last decade where it doesn't really matter if you like it or not. It's here. And so what are you going to do? And in those moments, that has its own sucking sound. But post that, I always feel like really thankful that I don't think I've ever grown as much in a short period of time. And it's got a touch of misery attached to it. But at the end of the day, I forget that quickly. And I'm just really glad that for the lesson, and because I would like to be able to do this better and better and better. And I need those kind of like smacked in the eyeballs with a ruler sometimes to like, okay. And sort of change my direction a little bit. And I'm really thankful for that. And, I don't think about how much it hurt in the moment, because who fucking cares?
It's beautiful to watch and beautiful to listen to. And I knew some of this. We talked before I watched it. I was amazed at how I wasn't preoccupied with that aspect of what I knew versus what I was experiencing. I was immediately drawn into this kind of very immersive, beautiful experience that you and the band and the directors and everybody had lovingly created. And I really think it's like, it's so...
Thank you. I appreciate
it's
that.
so worthy of our time and our attention, which is so stretched out. And so to be able to kind of sit down and this is where I just get to elaborate a little bit and really get close to experiencing the atmosphere and the sense of like real gravitas that was going on at that moment. It's fascinating how you remove that fourth wall with this.
Well, but can I say that we're talking about this issue which I had and all that stuff is okay. So that's true, but the truth is, when you watch this thing, it's not, no diss on MTV Unplugged is a cool thing, but it's not an MTV Unplugged.
It's definitely not that.
Simply just playing acoustically. And the bigger truth is that the Catacombs is so the protagonist. It's so overwhelming that we're also there and we're playing, but it felt like at all times that we were just serving this this audience, which really deserved attention, like that this is for you. People are viewing it a bit like a zoo in a way, but this was like, I brung something for you. I got you this thing, and can I show it to you? And like, it felt like we were having this moment together, and so,
which is like any other concert. It's just there we're alive and kicking and standing in front of you, drinking in a fucking field. That's why I love the line that you said in the, this is the largest audience we've ever played
Well,
to,
it's the
6
biggest.
million people.
Well, and it was, I mean, sure, it's a captive audience, but I,
It's a captive audience. You keep it coming.
I mean, and that's just real. It's funny, but it's real. And it also was like,
No walkouts.
yeah, I will say no return tickets. But I think, again, in that day, the best I felt is when we were playing. I felt it all. It's funny how it all sort of rushes away, and even like you showed that photo, and it's like, okay, so I was like, do we have a minute? I'm just going to lay down for a second, right? But the improv nature, the moving at the speed of inspiration, the looking for something that gives you a shot of joy for a second, and going, I'll go that way, right? So I'm laying there and Thomas goes, don't move. Can you start from here? And I was like, can I start laying down? You bet your fucking ass I can. So those things turn into these sort of heavyweight moments of this thing because they're just chasing down things that are good. I think it's like you're in the darkness and all you're doing is running at lights.
Well, you set yourselves up for that. That's the beautiful thing. By not going down, by not exposing yourself to the environment, allowing your imagination and your creativity to start to overthink. To go in there and be like, all right, well, this is happening. I had a chance to get off, to postpone this or perhaps never do it. It's happening. We're coming in pretty fresh. I feel this way. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think the being shocked by the wonder of the place was really helpful. And I also think that, as I said, like whatever plans you had above, that's just not going to work. And so you're forced to accept what's going on and let go of the control. And I also really love those moments too. We're all trying to make a world that you want to live in and all that stuff. And I, of
the
course,
illusion of it, yeah.
Yeah, but it is also nice to say, I am just a passenger and I'm not in control here. This isn't mine. I don't own this situation. I only have a chance at being really part of the moment.
We've never really talked that much about faith. It's just, we've dabbled in it a little bit here and there, but we've talked a lot about many things. And I think about that moment when you felt very supported and comforted. You definitely didn't feel alone. That's the headline. You didn't lie there in complete silence.
I was not alone.
You were not alone. And so what have you kept from that? How has that altered when you go above ground and then the matrix of life starts to reform and you start to see responsibilities, the things you do and not in life, but then there's that intangible, right? That kind of connection to spirit, to something we don't understand.
Yeah.
How did this experience alter that for you moving forward? Was it profound?
It's been slapping me in the face like a freshly caught fish for these last grip of years. It's like, again, dealing with situations where in the moment you're like, I don't like this. And the universe says, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't ask you that. That's not part of this, whether you like it or not. But I always have walked away feeling like, okay, that was actually a sort of a blessed moment, a chance for me to lose part of, well, I don't want to do this, lose part of that and accept what is real. I'd hate to be the last person holding on too tight to something which is not so. And I know that I find it so strange that I grab an apple and I chew it with the only bones exposed in my whole body into a pulp. It goes down here and it goes into a holding tank. And somehow my source energy, my soul, if you want to call it that, my life source takes that and says, we're going to use it to fuel the bag that protects me so I can venture on with my thoughts and try to make the dreams that I have, bring them into this reality. And that source energy cannot simply go away. When my bag is done living, because it cannot no longer, that source energy goes home. It must go somewhere. It doesn't just go, bye. And I would love to see how far this can go in this medium. This is the way I figure out my stuff, is to play. And so I want my soul to drag my bag as far into the darkness as I can. And I used to think that there was a bit of immortality attached to the music side. You could outlive your own life. But frankly, there's a whole generation of people that are like, Sinatra, who? I'm not sure it really. Yeah, we know Beethoven, but we don't know Joe Shit the Ragman and Gravel Gertie that also wrote some classical music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then I realized, like, no, my blood, the stuff that was given to me that I give to my children, they'll play their part, right? It's like, and when my source goes away, they'll have a peace of mind, as I have a piece of my family. And it's like, there's this beautiful comfort in that for me. It's that being a little piece of something. And I like the hardship, it's like, my grandpa's like, I'm only asking for one thing, all you've got. And it's like, in these moments, it's like, well, that's what I brought. That's what I brought here. All I got.
We've talked about him before quite a few times. In fact, the first time I ever met you and Nick, I remember you quoted your granddad, and he's obviously, given you some great principles to live by. Did you think about him when you were recording this?
I didn't have this sort of emotional bandwidth. It was either play or like lay down.
Yeah. Or both the beginning of the performance.
But also my grandma was such a badass too. She was a painter, the first woman to fly a plane in North Dakota, which maybe there wasn't a lot of attempts there, but still it's that.
Someone did it.
A painter, and she even smoked ciggies with one of them filters that like.
Hell yeah.
And watch, I'm touting. But she was just a jack of all trades and a very straight shooter and an expert horseman. And so I always had this reverence for my, the homicide of the grandparents and stuff like that. So I think of like, things like my name is important to me. It's like and at times when I've blown it up bigger, and at other times I've stabbed it with a penknife and like, but that's the way it goes, right? I always, what is it? Well, like wisdom comes from experience and experience comes from bad decisions. So if that metric is correct, I picked up a lot of wisdom. I'd like to be able to make the right guess for a situation. And even the songs we chose, it's like, we're not supposed to roll the hits in the Catacombs.
I loved the selections.
Well, it's supposed to be about family, acceptance, the moments that difficulties arise, and the moments just after they're solved, or they're not solved, they're dealt with, And it was because it was like, if you've been in here for a couple hundred years, what do you want to hear about? What do you want to hear? And it was like trying to gauge the requests of 6 million requests, And it's like, you'd want to hear about family, you'd want to hear about love, loss, and acceptance as the bridge between them,
And lovely for you to be able to acknowledge just simply by creating this beautiful sort of sonic song template that you have those songs, that you've throughout all of the moments that have made us jump and drink and feel badass and drive a little faster than we should.
A little sex as well.
And that part, I was getting to that. I mean,
thank you.
It was and fuck. That you've touched on these things, and it's true. Like when you watch this performance, you realize, like, wow, okay, there is a tapestry being woven here.
For some reasons, as obvious as the other stuff is louder, it sort of like pushes our mellower things aside at times. But I'm no spring chicken. And also, I think as I've been learning to play music, as I've been learning as the years have gone on, I realize that heaviness is more content than distortion driven, and stuff can be much heavier.
Dude, Winged Victory at the Sullen that I sent you is one of the heaviest albums I've heard in a long time. Yeah,
and I think those things, the weight that they carry is much more interesting as the years go on for me. And so I also think that, this is about looking for a place to jump to next. And wherever we've been, I just can't do that again. And I'm just not interested in, and that's okay. and not everyone agrees with the next jump you make, and that's okay too.
Totally fine.
But as long as
say
you,
that as a fan point of view, totally fine.
Yeah.
We go where you want to go.
well,
We'll either follow you into the room or humbly come in, cap in hand, some years later and say, sorry.
you still suck.
Yeah. No, the opposite. Sorry, it just took me a minute.
Yeah, well, I think.
Sorry, Tom York, just took me a minute.
Yeah, well, I think I told Ronson.
Yeah.
I was like, if 15% of people don't hate your new thing, you suck. And he was like, I'm just trying to get it to 45.
I'm just trying to get it to 45, man.
I was trying to get it to 45.
I just wrote a book. And it's,
No, but I think you have to take those risks and again, the goal is to make the last thing I would ever make my best thing, because I've learned all this stuff. And so that means every step along the way you have to risk. You definitely are going to fail.
Yeah.
And I get that, and that's okay. I think we play loud, we play soft. We play here, we play there, I think it's just really important to keep the attempt alive. You must attempt again. You must take that risk again. And I think I'm proud of this, and I'm pleased that that it somehow came together more than what I hoped it would.
You've got to feel like all of the parts played a role, that at the time the recommendation is to not, but I will.
But that's why you don't go home, though.
Exactly.
That's why you don't listen to you listen to that inner voice in these moments, and you ignore, even though you know that they might be preferable or better advice. There are times when you're like, I'm sorry, I have to take worse advice right now, because I can see my pathway requires a little stupidity in order to get to the end goal, because what's the benefit if I listened to that advice? I was in this emergency room, and in between, I just couldn't take it. I had a bus pull over, and I was just like, we ended up having to cancel Venice show, and I'm somewhere between Venice and Milan, and I'm in an emergency room.
This is before Catacombs.
Yeah. And they're like, you should probably stay here. And I was like, but they didn't know what I had, you know what I mean? So they, people thought I had a hernia and things like that. So
one day you're going to say to me when we're 80, it's like,
oh, I'll never make 80. There's no fucking way.
Yeah, you will.
I tell you what, though, I will come back and move your fucking furniture around.
Good man.
I'll be like, boo! And I'll knock over a chaise lounge. And you're like, that's not easy.
I'll be like, really, Josh? Is that it?
Change all the clocks in your house.
Really, Josh? Pretty good.
Guess who's late to dinner?
This is some base level ghost shit, homie.
You don't know how hard it is to
It's
boo
so
somebody.
hard. It's really hard. It takes so much energy.
Jump scares are a nightmare.
You think it's really easy? It's really hard to change a clock. I have two questions because this has gone by way too fast. And
Has it? No.
for me, we've talked in other conversations and in this conversation about the sum total of experience and what we go through in phases of life. And you've been through a lot. There's been a lot of mortality, both yourself and friends around you. We've talked about that.
That's what we all go through, right?
Correct. Correct. But we don't get to go to the catacombs, and we don't get to perform in this environment and have this kind of experience. Did you feel like this was, I can't think of a better word, so apologies, because it really is kind of a bit of a dump truck word, but was there a bit of closure off the back of this? Did you go like, okay, cool. Like
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And I was, when I got to make a record with Iggy and then do that tour, I was sort of like, okay, I could have done that forever, right? I could have been in his backing band forever easily, but I was like, what do I do? What now? That just for me, it was such a high point. I had moments where I was like, probably not gonna play now anymore. This was a really helpful moment for me because, these are all miniature Everests. They're like you're climbing your miniature Everest, and it's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be unlike what you expected, and you're supposed to have to turn yourself over to it and let go, and then you're supposed to back up and see what's there to take away to survive another period of time until you find your next Everest. I feel like I have the closure now that it's coming out because I'm not sick anymore. I feel fucking great. I was told I would be out for quite a while, and like I'm not, and I'm being different to myself, with myself, and I'm really fucking loving it, mate.
You have not mastered that.
I'm enjoying. Well, you can't win them all, but you can lose most of them. I'm enjoying kind of like almost a new relationship with myself that was provided to me by this experience, and so I'm really thankful, and yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
It leads perfectly into my final question, which is where I lean in.
Yes, I'll go to dinner with you.
Oh, I'd love to. You know that. So, where are you now? Where's the band? What's going on? We know you're heading to Europe. This is exciting. You've got a run of shows, like a few shows in America, which is a nice touch as well. And you'll spend.
I cannot stand saying I'm going to do something. So I'm going to finish what I started. I'm going to finish what was left on the table last year, and I'm just going to enjoy it.
Family's coming out again. Everyone's going to have a great time.
Yeah,
Amazing.
because that's what I care about. You know, it's like I don't want to let that stuff go. You know, they're only your roommates for 18 or 19 years, and
Trust me, I know.
You know, and I think we're going to do a Catacombs tour.
What is that?
Taking one of your songs and saying, okay, what if the way that it exists is not allowed? And I was taking these building blocks, and I was going to take these and just redo it in a different this way, you know. And it really inspired. Playing there was inspiring. We didn't over rehearse. You know, things like acoustic guitar. Yeah, fine. I don't need lots of acoustic guitar. These other instruments, like who knew glockenspiel would show up like the scariest lullaby you've ever heard in your life, you know?
I was with Bono 2 days ago, and he was like,
fucking name dropper.
That's a good one though. And he goes, I go, fuck, because I went back and listened to Boy. And I listened to the first thing you ever put out.
That's a great record.
Great record. And I said, of course you counted it in. First thing that ever happened, you had to count it in. And he goes, did you clock the Glock though? Did you
the glockenspiel?
Did you clock the glockenspiel?
See, unbeknownst
on a
to
first
people,
fucking single. He said ballsy, huh? Ballsy.
Yeah. Unbeknownst to people, glockenspiel is hot and heavy.
Seriously, I was like the glockenspiel. He was like,
count it out. A lot of people, they say, I don't even know how to say that word, and I'm always like, I agree. You said it wrong. Dorkensport.
I just love that he was like angling for props. This is
On a
Bono.
glockenspiel
He's like, don't fucking sleep on the fact we put a glockenspiel on our first single, motherfucker.
That's where you just take them out and go boink. Oh,
bomb on the Glock, man.
Well, but I think these other instruments, like Bono said, you know, they take this kind of prominence. So I think it triggered this idea, which is it'd be nice to take this moment and enjoy it too. And
love that.
Let it explore what that is. Explore the studio space, you know, to just say, okay, does this road go further? What's that like?
Yeah.
It's great to.
It's hugely curious too.
Yeah. I mean, why not?
Why not?
It is what, it's what we're supposed to do anyways.
Yeah.
And I think
it's great you're going to be able to barbecue backstage at Fly Fest in fucking Norway, but this is a different kind of curiosity, right?
How do you like your flies? Down. Yeah. So I think we're going to, and I don't think you need to overdo these moments either. I think you can sort of enjoy them and leave some meat on the bone. I don't think you need to pound. I'm not convinced that I need to pound the pavement everywhere anymore. I think you make these things to make them special. You just don't do too much.
Is there an album coming at some point?
Yeah, there's a beautiful, beautiful vinyl that's got like, you know, gold foil all over it, and it's really lovely. Yeah, honestly.
And what about a new Queens record? Is there a new Queens record?
Well, you know, once I got the all clear to go back to work, you know, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to work.
Yeah.
So,
watch as the rock star tries to figure out what he does or doesn't want to say at this early stage.
I guess the answer to the question
in his natural
habitat. Are we making a new record? It's like, would I do that?
So I'll see you soon then.
Yeah, probably.